Rome, the 15th of March, year 44 before Christ. The Senate is silent. 23 knives, 23 senators, one man on the floor, bleeding on cold marble. Julius Caesar had just died. But this story doesn't begin here. It begins much earlier, on a moonless night, 10 years ago, when Caesar was still fighting in Gaul, when he made a promise he should never have made, a promise that would return to destroy him. No one ever knew the whole truth about what happened that night, until now. Let's go back in time to Rome in the 1st century before Christ, a city of 1 million inhabitants, narrow streets where carts compete for space with merchants shouting their wares, the smell of freshly baked bread mixed with the penetrating odor of open sewers, white marble palaces erected beside insulae, precarious apartment buildings where the poor lived stacked in windowless rooms. Rome was the center of the world, and Julius Caesar was the center of Rome. He had conquered Gaul in brutal campaigns that lasted nearly a decade, defeated Pompey, his former ally, in a bloody civil war, crossed the Rubicon, defying the Senate itself and the sacred laws of the Republic. Now perpetual dictator, Caesar controlled entire armies, controlled the laws, controlled lands stretching from the Atlantic to Egypt, controlled the destinies of millions. But he also controlled secrets. Secrets that men would kill to protect or to reveal. And some of those secrets were about to destroy him. Let's return to Gaul, year 54 before Christ. Caesar is at the height of his military campaign. His legions advance relentlessly over barbarian territories. Entire tribes are massacred or enslaved, villages burned to ashes. But war is expensive, very expensive. Rome sends resources, but not enough. Caesar needs gold, needs to pay his soldiers, needs to finance the logistics of an army of 50,000 men in hostile territory. And that's when he receives a proposal. A tribal chief, a man named Vercingetorix, young, charismatic, unifier of the Gallic tribes. Vercingetorix sends an emissary, a peace offer. In exchange for ceasing attacks in certain regions, he would offer Caesar something no Roman general would ever refuse: access to the gold mines of northern Gaul. Tons of gold, unregistered, untaxed, directly to Caesar's coffers. Caesar accepts. But there's a condition, a secret clause in the agreement, something that could never be revealed to the Senate, something that, if discovered, would be considered treason against the Republic. Caesar agrees to allow Vercingetorix to maintain autonomy over part of the conquered territory. In exchange, a percentage of the gold would be sent regularly, not to Rome, to Caesar. The agreement is sealed, in blood, under oath to the gods. But someone witnessed everything. A young Roman officer, part of Caesar's personal guard, a man of noble origin, loyal, silent, observant. His name was Gaius Longinus, and he would never forget that night. Years pass. Caesar returns to Rome triumphant. The Senate receives him with distrust, but with respect. Pompey tries to resist, but is defeated. The civil war ends, and Caesar assumes absolute control. During all this time, the gold from Gaul continues arriving, discreetly, in small shipments, stored in private coffers, used to buy loyalties, to finance public works in Caesar's name, to distribute among veteran soldiers who could, one day, defend his power. No one questions, no one investigates. Because Caesar is intouchable, or at least seems to be. January of 44 before Christ, 10 years after the agreement in Gaul, Caesar returns from a brief campaign in northern Italy. The streets of Rome receive him with flowers and shouts of joy. Women throw petals from windows. Children run alongside the procession. Soldiers march in perfect formation, their armor shining under the Mediterranean sun. Everything seems perfect, but behind the curtains of power, something is deeply wrong. Mark Antony, his right hand, man of absolute trust, is distant, avoids Caesar's gaze during banquets, responds with monosyllables. His smiles seem forced. Lepidus, another important ally, hesitates when speaking, measures each word as if being watched. And Brutus, Marcus Junius Brutus, the man Caesar treated as a son, the son he never had with any of his wives. Brutus has also changed. Conversations abruptly interrupted when Caesar enters the room. Silences too long, glances exchanged between senators, whispers that cease when he approaches. Caesar notices everything, every detail, every subtle change in behavior, but doesn't act. Because Caesar, at that moment, is dealing with something much greater, something no one around him knows completely, something that began to disintegrate silently, dangerously. The gold stopped arriving. February, tensions increase visibly. The Senate meets almost every day. Heated discussions about the future of Rome, about the growing concentration of power in the hands of one man, about the possibility of Caesar declaring himself king. King, a cursed word in Rome, a word that represented everything Romans had sworn to destroy centuries before when they expelled the last king and founded the Republic. But Caesar doesn't want to be king. He wants to be something greater, wants to be eternal, wants his name to be remembered for 1,000 generations, wants to build an empire that lasts forever, and for that he needs absolute loyalty. Loyalty that is beginning to crack, like ancient marble under pressure. Cicero, the great orator, speaks openly against the concentration of power. His speeches in the Forum attract crowds. He doesn't attack Caesar directly. That would be political suicide. But his words carry poison disguised as philosophy. Cassius, influential senator and veteran of the civil wars, works behind the scenes, gathers the discontented, whispers words of rebellion in receptive ears. And Brutus, always Brutus, remains silent. A silence that hurts more than any inflammatory speech, because Caesar knows Brutus is a direct descendant of the man who expelled the last king of Rome. His name carries weight, symbolism. If Brutus turns against Caesar, half the Senate will follow. First week of March, the letter arrives, delivered by an unknown messenger, a hooded man, no identification, no official seal, just a piece of papyrus carefully folded. Caesar receives it in hand, alone, in his private office, surrounded by maps and state documents. He opens the seal, unfolds the papyrus, and reads. His hands tremble slightly, almost imperceptible, but they tremble. His face hardens, his jaw closes, his eyes scan the lines once, twice, 3 times. Inside the letter, a devastating accusation. The gold from Gaul didn't disappear by chance, wasn't stolen by bandits, wasn't lost in storms at sea. It was diverted, intentionally, by someone very close to Caesar. Someone who knew the routes, the codes, the contacts, the secret passwords used to transport the precious metal. And worse,
That someone was using the money to finance a conspiracy to assassinate Julius Caesar. The letter doesn't reveal the traitor's name. It only says, "Someone you love as a son is about to kill you as an enemy." Caesar reads the last line once more, then walks to the fireplace, throws the papyrus into the flames, watches the fire consume the words, devouring the ink, transforming the accusation into ash. But the information is already engraved in his mind. Every word, every comma. He knows who wrote it, recognizes the style, the construction of sentences, the meticulous choice of words, the firm but elegant handwriting. It's Gaius Longinus,